Welcome, everybody, to the Synapse Philosophy Group. I'm your host, Dr. Haig John. We got an awesome crew tonight. Dr. Scott Little, we've got Jeff, we got Steve, Barry, Carol, and Alan Lichter. And we got a bunch of people, as you know, come in and out. We're on D.D. Palmer's 1914 book, The Chiropractor. And we're on page 80, Impulse. We did do a little skip in there. These are textbook pamphlets that D.D. Palmer gave out to his classroom. So they got to get a little textbooky from probably the most learned man of the time. Here's Ben Lerner. And the learned man of the time of the central nerve system, the spinal column, and a true asset to humanity back in 1914 was D.D. Palmer. So we're really excited to be able to read this chapter, and it's called Impulse, okay? So just remember, this is a pamphlet he gave out in his classrooms. Also, this is a discussion. And we run this sort of like D.D. Pasquale Sarasoli's self-center. We get a moment to speak. He gave us 3 minutes to speak and 2 minutes to answer questions, but be brief, okay? Don't condemn anybody for what they're saying. And also, we're here to enlightenment. If someone has questions, we help them. We work as a team and together to bring knowledge and wisdom to chiropractors. So we're going to begin. I'm going to read, and we stop periodically so we can talk about it and discuss. Okay. Anybody have anything before we go? Thank you, Alan, for cleaning your camera. All right.
There we go.
Impulse, page 80. In our last lesson, we learned that Inuits in the knowing without reasoning. Intuits. I'm not sure. Oh, intuition. Yes. Okay, thanks. We got to look up a lot of words here. The instinct is a natural inherent impulse, unassisted by reasoning. An impulse is a spontaneous incitement arising from the feelings of the mind or spirit in the form of an abrupt or vivid suggestion, prompting some predominated action. An impulse suddenly starts or drives a thought forward to action. And I want to just say, do you know why he is starting this chapter with this? Is because of BJ. And BJ used the term mental impulse. And we know, we've discussed this many times, DD didn't like that. He liked a vital force over mental impulse. So this is a jab at BJ right now, if you don't know, okay?
Well, the last line in this is a slap.
It's literally a slap. It's, come on, boy. You know, you were but a lad when I gave that adjustment to Harvey Lillard. Okay, what do you know is what he's actually saying, right? All right, I'm going to the next part. Thoughts are entities. They exist, are created by imagination, reflections, meditation, judgment,
mediation.
And what's that?
Mediation.
Oh, I said meditation, excuse me. Which means via a medium, right? They are elaborated. Now, Pasquale taught us, and Sigafus, thoughts are things, right? In chiropractic, that's a common philosophy. That's what he's saying right now. What do you guys feel? I'm excited about this chapter. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Barry, you got something to say right down there.
Yeah, you saw my eye shape there because Sigafus would talk about the fourth and the fifth dimension. Things that you can't, things that our senses are limited to because we only see, hear, feel, touch, taste, a very, very small percentage of what's actually out there.
Yeah, it's all waiting for us in the fourth dimension. We just have to trust and ask for it. Pasquale would say, don't beg. It'll come in the right time and not a minute before. But I love that. He's giving us wisdom right here. Someone just posted recently, where do you see, things like this from D.D. Palmer? This is it. This is where he's telling us you're going to manifest the life of your dreams. You're an amazing chiropractor. You deserve it, right?
It's also, we've been educated to look for simple answers, for the answer for the test, for the problem in school from a young age. And this is more on the order of let go of the struggle and relax, and the impulse of intuition comes.
Could you imagine if you're taught manifestation in third quarter? I mean, no one's this is him teaching chiropractors to trust in, in the creator and know what you want, be specific and trust, right?
It's
I love
partly
it.
partly the same thing I sent from earlier today on the Synapse page,
Yeah.
where we said that in an earlier chapter here, Dee Dee says nerves connect organs located in different parts of the body so they may act in a united and harmonious whole. One important function of the body is that of will, a provision for the creation of thought. By the way, the cultivation of correct thinking is of great importance to the chiropractor.
What page is that, please?
59.
That's important because what we're doing here is making history. Reading Dee Dee Palmer's words out loud from 1914 and for generations to come. I want it's important that we're doing this. This isn't for us. This is for future generations of chiropractors that may be lost, might find this. Aaron, great I'm so stoked you joined us, Aaron. And Ben, I'm glad you joined us too. All right.
We're talking about thought here and that it's a matter of being able to create thought, and we just were talking about you can create your universe and trying to touch other dimensions, and it's all about the nerve system being clear and allowing that to happen. And he says that's what we're due. It's not about, he does in this book, he talks in all kinds of places about specific symptoms that he finds that he takes care of by adjusting. But the bigger thought running through this book is that it's a bigger thing we're doing. It's the whole body works when the nerve system is working right. And that's health. And that allows you to connect on all levels that you're not even aware of at times.
And it's spiritual. He's saying this is God in each one of these people. And we have to honor that service with each person that steps in front of us. Each person on the table, it's an altar. And trusting in that level. And that's what he's talking about. All right, I'm going to keep moving on, okay? A sign is that which communicates an idea. Speech consists of articulate sounds transferred by atmospheric vibrations. Telepathy is a communication of ideas between two minds at a distance from each other without the aid of words or signs.
And there it is.
I do. The power of force, the power or force of thought depends upon its momentum, and momentum upon the impetus, now I lost my place, received from nerve vibration during transmission. Vibrations receive their force from the amount of heat. What was that? Okay. So, vibration receive their force from the amount of heat. The amount of molecular action and heat are coexistent. Molecular action decides the quantity of heat. The heat determines the amount of molecular action. The quantity of heat depends on tension, and tension upon excitation. Normal stimulus is furnished by innate, the spirit, a segment of universal intelligence. Too much, again, we're right there. Too much or too little excitation, stimulation is the result of overtension. Overtension from pressure displacement of the tension frame, bones, the nerve toxification. Let me just pause there. What do you guys feel? He just threw in some important things. Normal stimulation is furnished by innate, the spirit. And it's important. We leave the second part out of that often, and I'm guilty of it. I wear it on my shirt for my events. And if spirit, innate is spirit. And that's what he's telling us. A segment of universal intelligence. Morbid impulses are qualified and differentiated as animal, destructive, homicidal, excuse me, hold on. The morbid impulses are qualified and differentiated as animal, destructive, homicidal, suicidal, uncontrollable, and especially those of an insane character. An impulse denotes action. An impulse denotes an action, not an entity. Okay. So function, why do you think he makes the distinction of that last part? An impulse denotes action, not an entity.
So the impulse that this is an impulse coming from the mental realm. So BJ would call it mental impulse. And the impulse, the force, the action is to unite spirit and matter. So it's not an entity per se. It's not a physical entity. And on the previous paragraph too, he pretty much talks about, without saying it, basically like 3 parts of the subluxation model, with the pressure, the displacement of the tension, the frame, the bones, and the nerve toxification. So here you could start to see some of his ideas, and then BJ, of course, developed them, the subluxation model. So I firmly believe that this part with the impulse not being an entity, it's because the action of the mental impulse is to take the impulse from innate intelligence into matter and create action, force.
That's very insightful. I wrote my note on the side of this is really where, the subluxation model is derived from. Thanks for that insight, Barry. Anybody else or anybody want some clarification from Barry or have any other insights? We'll move forward. Function. Function is the special and normal action of any organ or part of a living animal. This includes the natural action of any mental faculty. Pathological functions are those performed in a greater or lesser degree than normal.
This goes back to that last,
yeah,
where it said the impulse denotes action, not an entity. And here he's saying pathological functions are those performed in a greater or lesser degree than normal. Normal function, health, is perfect transmission of the impulses. When there's interference with that transmission, that's when you have dysfunction that manifests in many ways, such as morbid impulses.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. Thank you for that insight. That was insightful too. I'm getting a lot out of this chapter. I'm glad we jumped to this one. Thanks, guys. Okay, vitality, because this is one of my favorite words.
Force.
Okay. What is it? Did I miss force? I wanted to get to vitality so badly. Force as the power which produces or arrests motion. That which may be converted into motion. The rate of transforming energy. I mean, this is from Stevenson's. I mean, this is where he has gotten his work from. And was it Simon Sensen when he was on here? He was saying this is about the time when Stevenson was just deriving, making the chiropractic textbook. And so, I mean, it's really right here. I know this book didn't surface for a really long time, since till the 1950s, and it was, kind of banned, I think, from Palmer Bookstore and all that type of stuff. Same thing with 1910. So, the battle was going on. You could feel it.
And this whole chapter winds up being a loop of a description as you go through the whole thing. So as we read it, you can be thinking about that, but you may need to go back and look at it again. I read it earlier today, and I got to the end and went, oh, this all fits together like this. It's a whole piece. It's a step-by-step progression here.
When we talk about B.J. Palmer being a 33rd degree, Mason and all that stuff, but I think Dee was too. A lot of this stuff is very cryptic, and we can find some answers once we figure out their code. I bet a code comes up one day. We have to get one of the Bible scholars to put it in numbers or something, Okay. Vitality is the vigorous active principle upon which individual life depends. That's why vital force, he's putting the emphasis. This is why it is so important when he talked about vital force, which is the next one. Vital force is that principle of life which imparts energy. It is inherent in each organ of an organism. In each organ, the vital force for that organ to work within the organism itself. It's not the animator of the organism. That's spirit, that's innate. The vital force is what vivifies, it gives life to the organs itself. So it's important. I think that's what I get from that. That's what I see as an important distinction. What about you guys?
Well, you have to think a vital force. So a force of a stomach is going to be different than a force of a bladder. So the vitality is still in there. So innate's going to tell that organ that instruction job to do, and it's going to perform it.
Yeah. Energy is the internal inherent power, the product of activity, that which is aroused by an impulse. Nerve vibration carries thoughts, commands, orders, known as impulses when when in transit over the nervous system. As impulses over the nervous system. Thoughts gather force, receive impetus, which while being transmitted, the amount depending upon the quantity of nerve vibration. Momentum is the force of motion acquired by the movement of thoughts. The impetus received from nerve vibration. Has anybody looked up impetus? What is that?
I'll get you a
I
clear
wrote it
definition.
down. I wrote it down.
Impetuous, I use that word all the time. But impetus. The
The
force
force or energy with which a body moves. Hit the booster coil before the high flywheel loses all its impetus. The force that makes something happen or happen more quickly.
Okay. 1914 English. Perfect. Okay. Now my favorite. Did I say momentum? Now we're at tone. Okay. And we need to pull the tone pieces out here and start putting the quotes out there because most people get it all wrong. Okay. Tone is the normal activity, strength, and excitability of various organs and functions as observed in health. Tone is a response of tonicity. Tonicity is the normal elasticity of the filamentary or thread-like structures of the body, the nervous system. So tone, there is no tone in a corpse.
Yeah.
The muscle system has no tone. The skin doesn't have the tone it does when we're alive or living vibration is part of it. He goes into depth in some other places. Anybody have any other insights on that or like to expound on it? All right. And to innervate is to supply the nerve force. To enervate with an en is to deprive the nerve force. An impulse is a communicated thought. Impulses are conveyed over the nervous system by means of vibration. Thoughts originated in man, animal, and spirit. Okay, that's an important addition there. They are forwarded by atmospheric and etheric vibrations, which is the ether. In spoken language by the former and by the latter, where the affections of one mind are acted upon by the thoughts or emotions of another without communication through the ordinary channels of sensation, vis-a-vis the five senses. Okay, I'm just going to stop for a moment. So why do you think, where was that part? Why did thoughts originate in man, animal, and spirit? What does that mean?
He spoke of the word inherent twice. The first thing he said about intuition is that it's inherent.
Yeah.
Like it's
Or
consciousness.
It's consciousness.
It's like consciousness.
The instinct of intuition is a natural inherited impulse.
Okay, I like that. So would spirit, do thoughts originate in spirit?
Well, he says it does. That's what he's saying.
What
But
is
he's saying
that?
that's separate from, because what he's doing here is separating man, educated, and innate spirit.
That's it.
They've got man, animal, and spirit, and that's why, because he talked earlier about the non the ethereal communication between people when thoughts are generated, emotions are transferred between two people without any use of without vibration of speech.
Unassisted by reasoning.
And, you know, he said where he got his inspiration, and he said that is a message from God in the Christian world about chiropractic, came to him as inspiration. And, you know, thought not originating by him. He said it was me, right? And it was a gift, a download from spirit. And that's where to me, that's what he's emphasizing there is, look, I'm proof positive. You're learning chiropractic, which is a spiritual download from me. Other people have gotten it, but they haven't been able to bring it to the sense that we are bringing it now. That's what I read out of those three words there. I'm very good at inference, all right? Okay. You know what? Let's let somebody else read. Who feels like reading? There you go. Go ahead, Alan.
I'm happy to read all the time. You know that.
I know.
There are two kinds of impulses, sensational and motor. Motor impulses go outward and sensational inward. The motor is twofold. One originating in the mind of the physical, governs animal functions, the nerves of animal life. It is under the control of the human will. The other is not under control of the human will, but that of spirit, and controls the sympathetic nerves of organic life, creating and continuing in intellectual existence. A sensational impulse is one which comes from the out, one which creates within a sense impressions of our environments. A sense impression is no more or less than the recognition of nerve vibration, which is set in motion by the force of the sensational impulse. An impulse, a thought in transit, may be passed from one intellect to another as in hypnotism and telepathy, or it may be transported from one portion of the body to another. In the latter case, the nervous system is the transmitting medium.
Do you have any insights there? You want to share something, Alan?
There's something stewing in the back of my brain that won't quite come out, I don't think. He's talking about, you know, that there's different, the communication, he compares that intuitive communication to the same way that information goes from your brain to your tissue cells. That it's the nerve system, but it's not the nerve system, but the nerve system transmits it in a non-material way.
Yeah.
An impulse does go on. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The impulse does not make a circuit. Mental motor impulses go away from the central nervous system. Sensory impulses go to the central nervous system and away from the external and to the origination of nerves. Motor or sensory impulses do not make a circuit. They do not circulate. Motor impulses may be of the mental or spirit. The sensory is of the mental.
The sensory.
Life.
Hold on.
There.
What is he meaning right there? An impulse does not make a circuit, right? He doesn't like using inferences like machine and electrical. It's far bigger than that, right? Mm-hmm. Sensory impulses go to the central nerve system. Okay, I'm forming something too. Let's keep going.
Life, intelligent action, is the response to an impulse. This is true of the voluntary and involuntary functions. The former are those of the human will, the latter, those of the spirit. So again, he's educated and innate.
Educated and innate. That's right.
The impulse in transit is the thought sent out. It always remains the same in its requirement and command. However, its force may be augmented or decreased owing to the amount of nerve vibration. And I don't know if it's, I think it was in another part that he talks about. We mentioned before the bridge, the sensory bridge, and he talks about the bones being in another section here, he talked about the bones being like the bridge on a violin or a guitar. And they set the tone of the instrument, and but they don't change what's going on. They're there to help stabilize, but not, and are functional, but normally don't interfere with the sound that's being transmitted from a guitar. And here he's talking about that same concept, maybe augment and increase he's talking about the vibrations
with nerve tension.
So yeah. That's the vibration can't be interfered with. I'm sorry, my computer just told me my battery, so I got to plug it in.
Well, I'll say this. It's, we get caught up in the vitalistic with the mechanistic, and that there's the difference between the vitalistic and mechanistic. And what he is actually saying, it's both mechanistic and vitalistic. You have to have that combination. You can't have one without the other. The spirit needs the material. We've talked about this many times. Spirit needs the material, right? As much as the material needs the spiritual to keep this whole thing functioning. So it's the spiritual with the material, the mechanistic with the vitalistic. Absolutely.
The spirit manifests through the material.
100%.
That's where I was going to go back a few paragraphs where they say thoughts originate in man, animal, and spirit, where the thoughts are in what he refers to as the ether. They're all around us. They're all throughout the universe. And through man, animal, and spirit, they are received, interpreted, and expressed through the nervous system.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Well, we also are aware that it's not just it's throughout the universe, we are the universe. That innate is a part of, but apart from universal. And so in reality, we are all thoughts. Mm-hmm. And some come through each one of us. And that's what manifests through the matter that we're in at this moment.
As we're on this, and you talked about the cosmos, it is us. Pasquale and I, one day in Brooklyn, we're at headquarters at Self Center, and we go outside, and he says, because I was talking about, space and all these things. I'm a kid running around, 30 plus years old. I felt like I was 10. And, he takes me outside. We look up at the stars, and he said, you realize all that stuff out there, that's a reflection from here. That is from you. And, I was like, whoa, oh my gosh. Okay. And so that just brought that moment back. Thank you for that, Alan. And another one, right? I appreciate it.
Haig, those signals from the stars were also millions of years old being sent to you way back then, too.
Hey, we're part of that journey, too. We're just, light beings expressing, right? Thank you, Lord.
We ready here?
Yeah.
Functions performed normally with normal force produce activity known as health. Functions performed with more or less force than those indicating health is disease. Either of these conditions is life, one health and the other disease. So that's his clear definition of health and disease is that it's the manifest, it's either the information's all getting there or it's being changed, being increased or decreased somewhere along the line, and either one of those is a dysfunction.
Yeah.
Pathology is modified physiology. Pathological operations are physical acts modified. Processes which are the pathological are but modified functional movements. physiological impulses may become pathological in their expression. The spiritual or organic impulses are transmitted over sympathetic ganglionic nervous system, the nerves of organic life, which ramify the viscera of the four cavities of the body, whereas the mental impulses are of the mind, under the control of the human will. They go to the somatic portion of the body over the anterior and posterior branches of the spinal nerves. It will be seen that the impulses of the spirit, innate, and those of educated, the mind, have different origins. Each are transmitted over their special nerves, the splanchnoplora. In the inner or visceral portion of the somatoplore to the body wall, these two classes of impulses destined for different portions of the body over entirely different divisions of nerves, the one involuntary, the other voluntary, the former devoted to organic life, the latter to animal, ought not be thrown into the indiscriminate lot as innate mental impulses.
You know, he's so subtle at poking BJ Palmer in the ribs. He's like, hey, that's it, young lad. That's what he just did. Anyway, I mean, I'm easily amused, but that is a poignant moment in quotes, in quotation marks. That is okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? I just had to point that out. That's a jab.
Yeah.
Okay.
That Frenchman threw in a question a few evenings ago by saying, although the lady in the head of the with the head of beautiful flowing hair has good flow of language, yet there is something about her hair that is characteristic of a fluid. I was referring to physical science, natural philosophy, which deals with the material world. However, any gentle, gradual movement of or procedure of thought, diction, or music, which resembles the quiet, steady movement of a river or continuous contouring of words, a stream of language is referred to as flowing. It is assumed that all intelligence, our thoughts, every impulse is formulated in the brain. If so, in what particular part of the brain? Do they originate in the pons, the oblongata, the cerebellum, or the cerebrum? If in the cerebrum, which half? Is it originating center midway in the corpus callosum between the two hemispheres? Why not say, I do not know?
Powerful statement.
In physical sciences, to flow is a type of motion characteristic of fluids, that is, of liquids, gases, and viscous solids. A viscous solid is one distinguished by viscosity, having the quality of being adhesive, sticky, ropey, or glutinous consistency. Impulses do not flow as a liquid, transudate, or circulate as a fluid, or become softened sufficiently to run as a viscous solid. Rivers flow from lakes, tears from eyes, and the menstrual flow is periodical. Impulses are not liquids, therefore do not flow. Light, heat, sound, and impulses are transmitted by vibration, molecular action. They do not flow. Vital force is inherent, consequently does not flow.
Okay. I mean, you do realize, I mean, this is again, BJ, impulses flowing over the nerves. And in reality, he's right. I feel. What do you guys think? Do you guys realize those references?
I think it's interesting that he's talking about they don't flow. And I was on a call recently with Rob Sinnott. The ICA has started a series of monthly philosophy talks, and Rob was on it a few last week, I think on Thursday, and he was talking some of the research he's been doing, and they measured, science has been able to measure the speed of information along nerves.
Yeah.
And what he's found that he's got research now that shows that there's stuff traveling so much faster than what travels along those nerves, and it's almost instantaneous. And they can see changes in the in whole body function by and I can't go into the details of it. I got lost part of the way through, but it was a remarkable comment. And here he's talking, and if it's a flow, then it's a time frame from one spot to another, and if it's spirit, it's virtually instantaneous.
Yeah.
It's much faster than what nerves travel, no matter how fast those impulses are traveling along the nerves.
Are you talking about communication within the human being that is not over nerves,
Well,
such as intuition?
Didi says it's always nerves. And I don't know what Rob's measuring, whether it's over nerves or not. I can't tell you that part.
Well, I think it was, we don't like to bring in other people outside of chiropractic, but I think Bruce Lipton's kind of connected to Didi Palmer too.
He's
And
connected enough.
he talks about the communication from the cell membrane through the cell, nearly instantaneous. I'm pretty sure that was Bruce Lipton. We might have to find that.
That's right.
James Oshman also talks a lot about that in his.
What's the name again?
Oshman, James Oshman.
Yeah.
And, he talks a lot about how his example is a figure skater, a figure skating team. And we can come up with a lot of things like, going all the way down the field with 1 minute 32 seconds left and time doesn't kind of stand still. I'm kidding. That's a reference to the Super Bowl. But the idea is that people who have these extraordinary gifts and ability to function, you can't explain that by the speed of the nervous system. And he talks about the matrix and the extracellular matrix and the connective tissue and the fascia and all of these things, whereby I believe mental impulse travels much faster than nerve impulse. The thing about it is, the deeper that you dig into fascia and so forth, that substance that we just threw away in anatomy lab, it penetrates every layer of the nerve.
Yeah.
And so it's not, I feel like because we as chiropractors are so focused on bone, muscle, and nerve, and we don't talk much about the connective tissue. And then there's this whole other world of people that do, and we don't want to talk like them because they're massage therapists or they're manual therapists, they're myofascial release people or whatever. But gosh, if you read this and you read that, you're like, it's not an either or, it's an and. It's whatever those other two words are that go together. But I guess in my studies, I've been trying to figure this stuff out and being attracted to a lot of books on fascia and books on quantum thinking and so forth. And I'm fascinated because today's the first day I've ever opened up 1914. I've heard Jay Holder reference it in the past and always longed for a copy of it, and heard you guys talk about, I believe, the vibrational, what's one of the first chapters, vibrational nerve, or anyway,
the moral and religious duty of the chiropractor.
No, but there's another one, and and just I read all these books now. They're just discovering the ether is becoming fair to talk about and things like that. And I've read books about this whole, the reality is that
Scott, what he was talking about, I really feel is there's no beginning and end of the nerve.
Correct. I think that's my point. And we can measure the nerve impulse, but I guess in my mind, the mental impulse travels more through the fascial component of the nervous system. It's not the fascial system and the nervous system. You don't have a nerve here and a fascia here. You have a nerve and a fascia that are interrelated. And I believe that he's just connecting so many different things that almost, when I read things about,
think about
that Still said, and I read things that Dee said, they knew a hell of a lot more than we know today. Yeah. We know that Tesla knew a lot more than we know today. And this is just fascinating because it's just getting put together. I'm sorry if I'm bringing in things other than
no, what comes to mind is also the whole heart math thing. They're being able to measure. Right. They're saying that the heart, it doesn't have as many nerves, but its radiation that they can measure goes much further, more powerful than the brain. And
what Didi's saying
about a telepathy with things that are not measurable.
But what he's saying, it's not the one thing, it's not the heart, it's not this. We are all that expression of innate. You can't separate it into pieces and parts. It makes it easy. It's not a mechanical machine. He really spends time. It's not a mechanical machine. It's just what both of you are saying exactly. And that we're so much bigger than the pieces and the parts. And it's all one. It's all one amazing spiritual amalgamation of material.
Well, Haig, it just goes back to what you said a few minutes ago when you were talking about it's not mechanistic or vitalistic. Yeah. It's all one thing. One does not eliminate the other. Now, the mechanists want to eliminate the vitalists, but the vitalists don't really function without mechanism. There's quantum physics and there's Newtonian physics. And they work. Right on. They're together, and we certainly, from an educated standpoint, it's kind of like this. There's would you rather go to an educated chiropractor or an intuitive chiropractor? Now, the educated chiropractor did great on his boards and did all the book learning. The intuitive chiropractor did all of that too, but has the ability to take in information through his gut brain and his heart brain and his head brain, as you referenced heart math, 5 seconds before it hits the consciousness and so forth, and it all functions together. It's not an either or, but I'd much rather be a chiropractor who is able to take full advantage of his or her educated intelligence as well as his or her intuitive intelligence. That's the person who is literally going to be able to restore function, vitality, coherence, etc.
Well, that's what innate workshops is actually all about.
Exactly.
Don't you think, though, that when you are going with the relaxed invitation to the innate, your educated becomes a lot more well-functioning? When you focus your attention on the relaxed state of innate within you, don't you then find your mind works better? Like the way Einstein would go to sleep after struggling with a problem, and he'd wake up in the morning with the answer.
That time between wake and sleep, is a very creative time.
In my mind, when Stevenson talks about the missing link and the difference between a good chiropractor and a great chiropractor, and he boils it down to abstract thoughts. And the excellent chiropractor has an abundance of abstract thoughts to tap into, and the educated only chiropractor merely has book learning. He doesn't have abstract thoughts, and the more abstract thoughts that we can have, then the better we are. That's the distinction between a good and a great chiropractor. And I believe that the link here, or the interface, is one's ability to interface between their educated and their innate or their intuitive intelligence.
And that goes back
Well,
to
Scott,
what
I don't want to go too deep here, but I think BJ also confirmed that when he said the ordinary chiropractor has 5 senses, but the extraordinary chiropractor has the other 2, horse in common. So I know that's kind of deep, but I didn't want to go there.
That's great. Well, this was a good discussion, a great discussion tonight. I'm going to start wrapping it up. And
we could finish this up pretty quick if we could get.
we won't
we
be
can
able to get the rest of this chapter. Let's hold it. We don't need to rush. We also were getting these with Portuguese subtitles. The Brazilian students and chiropractors watch this and listen to this. We put in Spanish subtitles. Okay, the entire planet is going to watch these, and we're going to end it there. We did a lot. We'll just pick up in this spot.
Haig, I got to say that the next paragraph relates directly to what we were just saying.
Okay, this last paragraph, but we're running out of time. When it gets too long, okay, go for it.
All right. Impulses are not substances. They are not ponderable, capable of being weighed. They cannot be measured by the bushel. They have no length, breadth, or thickness. They do not flow. They cannot be percented, nor impeded, hindered, obstructed, or interfered with by the placing of an obstruction in their pathway. This is what I was talking about earlier. The arch or the bar of the violin, guitar, or other stringed instrument, which gives permanency to and causes the wires or strings to be tensely stretched, do not prevent the passage of vibration. The impingement modifies the tension. It changes the amount of vibration. It does not obstruct the course of the impulse. It simply augments or decreases the force of the impulse. The first part of that, impulses are not substances.
Hold on one second. We're going to start with reading that again next week. Okay. There's so much there. It's a place to bounce off of. Trust me. I'm a professional. Okay. All right. This was an awesome night, guys. I really love and appreciate you. Ben Lerner, I'm so stoked you showed up. Carol, I love you. Barry, I love you. All of you, I love you. We had a great night. Next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. And yeah, we're gonna pick up right here where we're gonna finish Dee Dee's book. All right. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.